Hello everyone, in this tutorial we are going to see how to return data in the requested data type. For example, if we request in CSV or XML or JSON, how to return the requested data type in Mule form. So I have a Mule application and let me show it in action. So if I requested it in CSV, I have a query parameter here. The response, I want it in CSV. If I submit this, it gives me data in comma separated in CSV format, comma separated values, as you can see here. And if I change this to JSON, then it should return the data in JSON format. And if I requested this in XML, it should return the data in XML format. So let's see how we can build a Mule application that returns the data in the requested data format. So to save time, I have built a flow here. So in this case, what I'm doing is I have data. So when a request is sent, it reads the data and changes it to the requested data type and returns it. So I have a listener, as you can see here. Get data is a path. So that is why we have this get data here. And the response is a query parameter. So we want to extract the query parameter and create a variable from it. And based on that variable, then we can create a choice router. So here I'm creating the data type from the query parameter here. So attributes, as you can see, attributes.queryparams.response will save the data type. We'll see it in debug mode. And this one, I am reading data, customer data, some dummy customer data is here, this customer's dummy data, and it returns it in the requested format. So one thing here is the variable, we have to save the data type, the attribute before reading data, otherwise the attributes will be replaced. So attributes are basically like metadata about the payload. So in here, in this stage, attributes contain query parameters and other things from the listener from what we submitted, whereas here after it read data, then it will have attributes about the data like the file name, file path, when it was modified, and so on. So that's why I'm creating a variable here, and the variable name is data type. So now we have a choice router here with different with a couple of conditionals. So the first one is the expression, couple of different expressions. So here the top one, we want the data to be in JSON format. So what we are saying is if the vars.data type is JSON, if this is true, if the request is JSON, then transform the payload, as you can see, an easy thing, transform the payload to JSON is what we are doing here. And the second one, on the other hand, what we are doing is if the data type is XML, then transform the data to XML. So when we transform the data to XML, we should provide a root node. So that's what I am doing here. If I simply put payload here, it will give an error message. So I created a root node basically here. And the same way, if the submitted data type is CSV, then it will transform the data to CSV basically. So the output in this case is CSV, and then we can put a default. In this case, I'm just putting JSON. Now let's run it in debug mode and let's see as the Mule event changes. So by the way, this project, I have saved it in my GitHub repo. So it is this one. I will add a link for my GitHub repo in the description section. So if you are interested, you can check it out, download it, and try it. So, okay, now we are running it in debug mode, and let's send a request. So let's say XML and submit this. If we come here, we see the request has come. Let me maximize this kind of thing. So in the beginning we don't have variables and we don't have payload, but we have attributes, and under the attributes I have a query param here. So query params we see here. Here is the query params. We have one query param. The key is response and the value is XML. So in here, if I just type here attributes dot query params dot response, it should give me XML in this case. Then I'm checking in the choice router. If I just put $sign XML, this will give true in this case. So that means it will evaluate, it will return the data in XML format. So this is true, whereas all of the rest are false. Like if I put CSV here, since it is no CSV in this case, it will be false. So, and the other point that I said is the variable creation here. We are creating a variable from the query parameters before reading data, because after reading data the attribute will change, and let's see that. So if I click next processor here, now it is in the read processor. So if you continue like this, now if you come, we see there is payload. It has read the CSV format, the CSV type, CSV data. And if you come to attributes, if we try to create attribute now after reading the data, we don't see the query parameters. Rather, the attribute now contains about file name, last access time, last modified time, path, and so on. So yeah, we have to create when we create attributes, when we create variables from query parameters and URI parameters, it is good if we create them right next to the listener in this case. So next, if I press next processor, now it has come to XML, you see. So this will, the next processor will be data transformation in here, because the data is in the request is XML. And then if I click next, now it has come out to the logger. And what do I have in the logger here? Yeah, the logger doesn't have anything. So if I come here, I have the data in XML format. Whereas if I send this as CSV, next, so let's see, the request has come. If you go to attributes, query parameters, we have one query parameter, and the key is response again, whereas the value is CSV. So in this, the variable here, the data type will be CSV basically. So if I click next, okay, now if you come, there is one variable under var. The variable name is data type and the value is CSV. So if we do vars.data type, it will give us CSV, and that is what we are using. That is the expression we are using in here to transform data to the appropriate requested format. So if I click next, now it will come to this processor. So next, as you can see, it has come here. So the data will be, the transformation in here will take place, which is just transforming the data to CSV. Now I click next and we see a response here in CSV format. I think, yeah, the main thing here is just creating a variable here after the listener, and then using that variable in our expression and doing the right data transformation. For JSON, we just put here as output type should be application / JSON, and we put payload here. Whereas for XML, we have to put a root node here, which is data in my case, a root node, and I am mapping it here. Where for CSV also it is similar to JSON. I mean, in terms of specification, we just put the application CSV. This is all for this tutorial. You can get the project in my GitHub repo, as I said, and I have also other projects and other useful MuleSoft tutorials in my GitHub repo. You can check it out. I will add a link to it in the description section. Also, I will add a link to my website. It has other useful MuleSoft related stuff.